homestead, and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to go over an article here on this website called Sabbath Sermons. This was sent to me by Mike Jones via email. And Mike, I'm sorry it took me so long to get to your email. And everybody else, I'm going to get to all the emails. It just takes time. And this is actually a pretty good little article. Now, again, like I've said many times before, you can tell here from the website, this is, I don't know if this is an evangelical, I don't know much about these people. In the background here, you have this rainbow. There's always like, with evangelical websites or other Christian websites, there's always like this kind of aesthetic that is usually kind of the same. And I mean, basically you can tell the difference in aesthetic between our church's websites and theirs. And I'm not saying that theirs is bad, but there's always like graphics and stuff like this, it seems like. And whenever we come across websites like this, we need to be careful. Not that there isn't good information in there, and I think there is really good information in this article, actually. But I'm going to show you one thing that could trip some people up if they're not careful, okay? So this article has to do with this scripture in Revelation. And we actually just went over this recently with that statue that's at the UN, that video that I did, the jaguar with the eagle wings. Well, okay, so let's review this really quick, and then we'll get into the article, okay? So Revelation 13, verse 1, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." Now, you'll recall from previous videos that these beasts that show up in the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, they kind of actually like match up with each other. The book of Daniel and the book of Revelation are very similar in theme and also imagery. And the beasts represent essentially Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue with the gold head and the arms, the waist, the legs, which represent all the different superpowers of the world from Babylon to modern day, with these European nations that are powerful in the United States. Okay, so that's the stage that we're at right now. We're at the last beast, with 10 toes, feet made of clay and iron, but also these 10 horns, which are basically another way of saying the 10 toes. It's these different kingdoms that come from the Roman Empire. So this beast rose up out of the sea. Okay, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon, which I think you can safely interpret as Satan, because in the previous chapter, in chapter 12, the dragon is Satan. It talks about him bringing with him the third of the hosts of heaven. So the aftermath of the Roman Empire, in Satan, the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And that makes sense, because if you understand the concept of secret combinations, Satan actually really does seem to have actual literal power in this world. When he came to Christ and he tempted him in the desert, and he said that he could give him kingdoms, I think that's actually true in the sense that he could have administered to Christ the secret combinations and shown him how to rise to worldly power and therefore, be the king of kingdoms. So I think that's what he was attempting to do. That's my opinion, though. That's just opinion. So you have these modern day nations, the remnants of the Roman Empire, and Satan is involved in their power. Okay, and I saw one of his heads, and it were wounded to death. And his deadly wound was healed. Okay, so one of the heads died, and then it was healed. and all the world wondered after the beast. Now, I think Janet, another one of my subscribers, had actually brought this up and wondered what I thought about this. Well, I haven't looked into this until just now, but I'll tell you what I think. And I think Mike Jones actually answers this question with his article that he shared. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power to the beast, so Satan giving power to the nations. And they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" You know, just think about modern day, think about the European Union, think about the United States, think about the UN. Who can make war with the European Union? Who can make war with NATO? Who can make war with the United States and expect to win? As far as like, if you were to like try and invade the United States or something like that. Obviously, we've had problems with Vietnam and Afghanistan, which war I was a part of, by the way. Really disappointing. One thing before we move on, I just want to mention here that this beast, it seems to correspond with the fourth beast in Daniel, which was not compared to an animal. The other three were, but this one wasn't. And here in Revelation, it's not really compared to a singular animal, but it's like a beast that has all these different, almost like these different aspects of the previous beast, right? A leopard, feet of a bear, mouth of a lion, right? The lion represented Babylon. I can't remember if there was a bear, but if there was, I think this represented like the Persians and the Medians, and the leopard was the Greeks. I think that's how it went, because there is an official interpretation of those first four beasts in the statue in King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Okay, so anyway, in question is this right here. Seeing one of the heads wounded to death, and then it was healed, and all the world wondered. So what does that mean? Most people look at this, well, I'm not going to say most people. Many evangelicals look at this as the Antichrist. And so this is like one of the miracles, or fake miracles, or whatever you want to call it, of the Antichrist. And so people insert that idea in this because they don't really know what to make of it. I'm not of the opinion that there is a singular one-person Antichrist of the last days. That's something that many people are looking forward to. They're like, oh, is that the Antichrist? Oh, maybe this person's the Antichrist. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that the Antichrist power is the great and abominable church, and it's different people. There are many Antichrists, and they're very, very strong nowadays because we really live in a day of great wickedness. Okay, so what does this article say about this head that died and then was healed? Now, I think that this is really good, and I think it's I think I agree with it. In 1814, the Great Revolution, which shook so many thrones in Europe, drove the Pope also from his dominions. Okay, so we're talking about the Pope. His restoration shortly after was through the force of foreign bayonets, by which alone he was upheld till his final loss of temporal power in 1870. So what happened was in 1848, let's see, it's this one right here, there was a revolution. Okay, by early 1848, all of Western Europe began to be convulsed in various revolutionary movements. The Pope, who claimed to be above national interest, refused to go to war with Austria, which totally reversed the up to now popular view of him in his native Italy. His situation was further complicated by strong opposition to him and his policies within the Vatican and the Papal States, originating in the forces which he had defeated in the Papal election 2 years earlier. Okay, we're just going to move down. We have the Austrian emperor. Wait, okay. No, I better read it. The Pope had appealed to the Austrian Emperor to voluntarily cede the Italian provinces, which was rejected in Vienna, where the liberal policies of Pius IX were viewed with outright contempt. Pius appointed a liberal Pellegrino Rossi as the chief minister of the Papal States, which resulted in additional negative emotions now also directed against Rossi. In a calculated, well-prepared move, Rossi was assassinated on November 15th, 1848, and in the days following, the Swiss Guards were disarmed. Now, the Swiss Guards, I don't know their history. Swiss Guards, they are, if you're not familiar with the Vatican, they're the ones that, for some reason, protect the Vatican. They're like the security or the military, I guess you could say, of the Vatican. And this is how they dress today. Maybe this is familiar to you. Maybe you've seen this before. But you have the Swiss Guards. Here's one right here. So I'm sure it's a great honor for these people. Whatever. So the Swiss Guards were disarmed, making the Pope to a prisoner in his Quirinal. And a Quirinal is... Okay, the Quirinal Hill is one of the 7 hills of Rome at the northeast of the city center. It is the location of the official residence of the Italian head of state, who resides in the Quirinal Palace. Okay, so he was made a prisoner there. In this public disorder, Pius IX was forced to concede a lay ministry. Okay, so instead of, I guess, what does lay ministry mean anyway? Lay, isn't that just a religious organization? In religious organizations, the laity consists of all members who are not part of the clergy, usually including any non-ordained members. Right, because our church, we have lay leadership, basically. Okay. So to concede a lay ministry with persons hostile to the Holy See and a constitution. But public disorder grew with repeated riots. Pius IX fled Rome and escaped in disguise as a regular priest to Gaeta on 24th November in the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, leaving Rome to the radicals and the mob. So that's what happened in 1948. And then it talked about how they lost, or how was it worded? The final loss of temporal power was in 1870, and this was during the time of the First Vatican Council. You may recognize it. There's Vatican I and Vatican II. Vatican II happened, I think it was in the 60s. It made a lot of traditional Catholics upset because of changes that were made. But you can read through this if you want to. So essentially, you can read this whole thing, and it kind of gets into the details of this. And I think that this probably is a pretty good candidate for this scripture and what it's talking about the head being wounded and then coming back to life. And it happened before as well. It had referenced, what was it? 1798. There was another time that something similar happened. So the Pope has had problems in the past, but returned to power, and so you could make an argument that this is the fulfillment of the scripture. Now, I went to the student manual, and that covers these verses. It doesn't give an interpretation for that particular verse. It doesn't say. It just kind of talks about, in general, the beast itself, rising out of the sea, but it doesn't talk about that verse. So I don't know that the church has a specific interpretation of that. I think that this is a very good candidate, like I just said. Now, excuse me. Now, the part that we need to be careful with here is this. The overthrow of the papacy in 1798 marked the conclusion of the prophetic period of 1,260 years. And constituted the deadly wound. So here we have this, 1,260 number. And as you know, like if it was 1,260 days, that would be about 3.5 years. Now remember, other churches, they don't have the same interpretation that we do necessarily when it comes to these 3.5 year periods. I've done a video about that, about 3.5 days, 42 months, so on and so forth. In Revelation 12, there is a Joseph Smith translation that changes 1,260 days to years. Now, maybe these people interpreted it the same way that Joseph Smith did, and realized that it was talking about years instead of days. But even with the Joseph Smith translation, I'm not sure that it necessarily is an exact time frame rather than a concept, because 3.5 generally symbolizes, half of 7. So 7 being perfection, being half of perfection is, not good. And Jews have interpreted 3.5 to mean apostate. Basically apostate. And that's how the number is used in the scriptures. Because in Revelation 12, where it uses this number, it's talking about the great apostasy. So 1,260 makes sense, and it's not a short apostasy of days, but a long apostasy of years, and that's what happened. So, all right, so that's my thought on this. Thanks again, Mike Jones, for sharing this. Do we need to interpret this as, or do we need to take this as our official interpretation? No, probably take it with a grain of salt, but I think that this is the best candidate that I've seen out of any to explain this scripture. But, this could be something else. There's no footnotes or anything here, so who knows? But it's something to consider. If you guys haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts, opinions, and if you have additional information in the comments below. Also make sure to share this with anyone that might find this interesting, and I'll talk to you guys later.